Hi, I'm Jason, head of the IT tech there, so I will be controlling your audio volumes with your mics. Feel free to move them if you feel like you.
Thank you.
I was also told we have a speech by Rabbi Belzer to play.
I heard it, yeah.
So if you want to,
Very good.
okay, so you just tell us when you'd like, where somebody will cue
I
it.
have a queue.
Okay, and we've got 2 TV stations up there, plus our live stream. So you're on camera, mics are live, we are live now, so anything you say will be on the issue. And if you need anything, just holler.
Sit up here for just the beginning. I want to thank everybody for coming here today to honor a man who served our congregation for over 20 years. Our condolences continue to be with his family. I want to thank all the people who are joining us, both from our community, the Jewish community, but also we have people here joining from throughout the rest of the Savannah community, people from other houses of worship, people we knew in so many other capacities. We thank you for coming here to honor him. It is an honor here to invite up Rabbi Steve Grunfast, who is the former rabbi at Congregation Agudat Achim in Savannah, who is currently a rabbi in Akron, Ohio, and is a longtime friend of Rabbi Belzer, as he's going to officiate this afternoon.
Retired rabbi. In the Midrash, we read the following. Every person has three names. The first name is given to us by our parents. We have no control over that. One is a name that we are called by others. We may have some control. But the more interesting one is the one that we earn for ourselves. And Arnie, I call him Arnold, earned a Shem Tov, a good name, throughout his many, many years. Please let me begin with the 23rd Psalm. Mizmor LeDavid, Adonai ro'i lo eksar, binodeshi arbatzeni al mei menuchot yanahaleni. Nafshi yashovev yanechem b'maglei tzedek leman shemo. Gam ke'elek b'geit salmavet lo ira ra ki ata imadi. Shivtecha mishantecha hema yanachamuni ta'aroch lefanai shulchan neget zorai. Tishant havashem meroshi kosi rivaya. Achtov achesir yudafuni kol yimei chayai. V'shavti b'veit Adonai la'orech yamim. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. God has me to lie down in green pastures, leads me beside the still waters, guides me on paths of righteousness, revives my soul for the sake of God's glory. Though I walk in the valley of the shadow of death, I fear no harm, for you are with me. Your staff and your rod comfort me. You set a table in sight of mine enemies. You anoint my head with oil, my cup overflows. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall abide in the house of the Lord forever. Amen. Apparently, Arnold orchestrated today. He had notes. He never got notes to me, but he got the notes to Nathan, and Nathan gave me the notes. And one of the notes was, everybody who speaks can only speak 5 minutes. Which probably will not happen, certainly for myself. But that's okay. He's certainly here in spirit. He permeates the building. We lived here 35 years ago. I remember there was no nice building behind us. It was like not a nice, boxy building. He helped build that. I see that ship that hanging in the lobby. He told me the whole story. He told me a lot of stories about the synagogue and about his life. And we'll hear more stories as well. We have a number of speakers that want to offer thoughts and memories. The first is from his sister, who unfortunately couldn't be here today, but she wrote the following that I have the honor to read. It is with great sadness that my brother Arnie is no longer with us on this earth. What an amazing brother, husband, and grandpa, who always had a great sense of humor. Arnie's smile, his grace, and wisdom were all spectacular and heartwarming. Caring and sharing were the essence of his life, and that never faltered. I always respected him and took heed to his every word, even before he was an ordained rabbi. May his memory be a blessing to us all. May his countenance, brilliantly amusing sense of humor, that's true, and great wisdom be always remembered. My sister-in-law, Arlene, was the light of Arnold's life. They were soulmates from the very beginning. My dearest sister-in-law was the pillar of wisdom and embodied hospitality that was par excellence. I have years of joyful and inspiring memories of Arnie's missions and endless hospitality, with his boundless care and love for the congregation at Mickve, Israel, that he led with such grace and dignity. The topping on the cake is my nephew Nathan and Allison, Cecilia and Lillian. I know that they will follow their grandfather's wisdom and goodness. Love, Ellen Beth. I next call upon the granddaughters, Lillian and Cecilia.
Sleepovers at Gammy and Zadie's were not rare, but were always such a treat. Gam would sing Row, Row, Row Your Boat over and over, and Zadie would read our favorite story from a Yiddish joke book.
If you know him well, you've probably heard it before. A man walks into a restaurant and orders soup. I already see some smiles from those of you who know how this goes.
The man orders the soup and it arrives. He looks at it and immediately tells the waiter, "Taste the soup, taste the soup." Zadie told lots of jokes. A lot of them we laughed at, a lot of them we may have been a little embarrassed by, and a lot of them were somehow both.
I remember one day in first grade, Zadie came to pick me up from school. He drove up in his red convertible, but he didn't stop there. He hopped out of the car and waited for me, parking in the middle of the carpool lane and just walking up to greet me as if every parent did that. He had on this leather bomber jacket with different patches, and I was mortified. I can picture this moment perfectly, and I can still feel my cheeks changing to match the exact hue of his car. I got in as quickly as I could and felt every eye on me. But as embarrassed as I was that afternoon, the next day at school, everyone told me how cool my grandfather was. That is exactly who Zadie was, always making himself known, convertible or not, because he could light up every room or every carpool lane.
Deep down, we always knew he was a cool grandpa because what other grandfather picks their granddaughters up from school and takes them to Sonic for mozzarella sticks or a Sonic Blast? I only found out this week that Zadie didn't pick me up every day from preschool because I always remember him there on time in that red convertible because Zadie's presence was so strong and so joyful.
Whether it was letting us have unlimited frozen yogurt on a cruise in Alaska or turning an Italian train ride into our own little dance party, Zadie had a way of making every moment a celebration.
Every time we visited him, it felt like a party. Even if not much time had passed, every dinner was a big holiday because he was so excited to see us and to have an audience. As you all probably know, he loved to talk and he loved to eat slowly. At dinner, we would have to tell him to pause his story so we could finish eating, otherwise we would never leave the table.
No matter what he did or how far away we were, we knew he was always proud of us. He believed in us so much. Just last year, he called me and left a voicemail asking me to call him back urgently. I did, and he was asking if he could write in my name on a ballot in November for a local election. I laughed and obliged, knowing I would get exactly one vote, his vote. He was my biggest supporter. He believed I could do any job, whether I wanted the jobs or not. He would see an anchor on TV and say, "You would be great at that." He would see a member of Congress and say, "You would be great at that." And when I told him I was officially going to law school and following in my dad's footsteps, I knew he had never been more proud. He got the chance to see his son become the most successful father he is to me and Lillian. Knowing that I was going to law school in my home state, the same law school as my dad, to likely practice the same type of law, was everything he could have hoped for.
He loved having us live right around the corner, and like every grandparent, he always wanted us to be closer to him. But at the same time, he always wanted what was best for us. So when I told him I had the opportunity to do medical research in Italy, he encouraged me to take it, knowing it was going to be so far away from him for at least 8 months. Zadie always put us first and constantly reminded us how proud he was. He was encouraging, thoughtful, and loving. And as proud as he was of us, we are both so grateful to have him as our Zadie.
Our joke-telling, always smiling Zadie. He brought laughter and magic to our lives. Growing up, he pretended the fern in the backyard was a money tree, and he'd have us go check the leaves whenever we came to visit. Sure enough, every time we checked, there was something there.
Just like every time, he'd continue telling the same long joke, "Taste the soup." The waiter thought it was weird. No one in my 20 years of working in this restaurant has a customer ask me to taste the soup. After lots of back and forth, the waiter finally agrees. He looks down and says, "Where's the spoon?" Aha.
Zadie loved us so much, and he made sure we knew that. Showing up at every dance recital and school play, we knew we could always look to the audience and see him there. And when we were his audience, sitting right there, sometimes with little sticker books in hand, we knew we could always look up and see him smiling right at us. We miss you, Zadie.
Our next speaker will be Arlene.
So, going back to 1968, there was a phone call from some guy named Arnie who found out that my cat had a litter of kittens ready to be given away and that he might want one. We set up a time for him to come over. I asked about himself, concerned that the kitten should go to a good home, and he said he was a rabbinic student, and I thought that was really weird. As the only rabbis I knew were old, bearded, and from another world. And that was the beginning of meeting Arnie 57 years ago. He was not old, he was not bearded, although bald, and he was not Orthodox, but he was from another world. I was from Brooklyn, and he was from Scarsdale. And of course, our first date was to help chaperone a Temple youth group event that he was in charge of as their student counselor. Fun date. And yes, there was a second date, a picnic, just the two of us, munching on turkey legs and sides outside of the fountain in front of the Plaza Hotel in New York. And after that, it was the life adventure that I never knew existed. He was very smart, funny, talkative, worldly, cute, talkative. Drove a red MG convertible. He was engaging, thoughtful, well-dressed, talkative. We were engaged just a few months later, and then began our adventure. I was a production editor at Macmillan Publishing Company, and he was a student rabbi. And I learned and learned and learned what Judaism was all about, even though I was a Brooklyn girl with the last name of Kosowski. Arnie was born an I did it my way guy, and that took us through getting ordained, serving a congregation in Connecticut, having a wonderful child, Nathan, serving a semi-conservative congregation in New Jersey, and then finally coming to Savannah to help lead a historic congregation with roots going back to 1733. I do think that after 3 or 4 sermons, the congregation wasn't so sure that they hired the right rabbi. But we all stuck to the plan, the karma, of that's where he should spend the rest of his life. Savannah was not a place of change, and being an I did it my way guy, the changes did come. Instead of just challah and wine and hello at the end of a service, there was a full kiddush lunch with tourists always invited and a chef to help feed us so we could socialize with each other beyond a casual Shabbat Shalom. There were guest speakers and hosting elder hostels and docents and temple tours and a large and important Jewish museum to expand and enjoy and share with the world. There were fiery sermons and show and tell sermons and mixed media sermons. There was guitar music, and there were also cantors. There was a religious school with our AA neighbors. There was life and love and stories and all-day lectures on an introduction to Judaism, including lunch and dinner and ending with Havdalah. There were confirmation class trips and many links added to the confirmation chain. There were shared community seders that grew and grew and grew. There was the use of 2 different prayer books, one for Friday night with lots of singing and Hebrew participation, and the other Union prayer book for Saturday mornings for a more classical Reform service with its own beauty and tradition. It was a special and amazing and beautiful Slichot service, starting with dinner. And there were heavy discussions about adding a second-day Rosh Hashanah service. There was a new building to build and add to this beautiful Gothic sanctuary. There were also monthly Shabbat dinner club meals and getting ready for Amen Lo Mein booth at the Food Fest. There was work to be done starting last century, and he did it. All tradition now at this historic congregation who went with change after all. And there were community projects to be part of and interfaith Thanksgiving services to enjoy and host. And he would always be thinking of inclusion rather than exclusion. And that was all part of Arnie's adventure here, to explore and expand and be proud of. Yes, Arnie had strong opinions. He never met a stranger, and he loved his spicy ethnic foods. As of late, his favorite side dishes were jalapenos and sriracha. Please remember him in joy and love. Remember his smile. Remember his laugh. Remember what he taught. You can honor Arnie's memory by remembering some treasured moments with him. For many, there are wonderful moments to remember. For others, there are tough moments to replay. On behalf of our family, Nathan, Allison, Cecilia, and Lillian, there are thanks for letting him be here today on his journey back to God.
Next, we'd like to call upon Nathan.
Tough acts to follow. Thank you for coming today to celebrate my father's life. Thank you to Rabbi Haas and Mickve Israel for hosting us, and Rabbi Grunfast for coming down to Savannah to lead our service today. As most of you know, I'm an RK, a rabbi's kid. When I was younger, that designation came with some added obligations. I'm sure I attended more services, weddings, and funerals than my peers. My trips to the Bima were more frequent and almost certainly longer than my peers. When studying for my bar mitzvah, I was meeting with the cantor and running through my Torah portion. I finished chanting what I had learned so far, and the cantor congratulated me on learning everything. Everything? I'm only halfway done. Apparently, unbeknownst to me and the cantor, my dad had made my portions quite a bit longer than everyone else's. I often heard Allison's grandmother on her Myrick side, who just about everyone called Granny, say that with privilege comes responsibility. But I'd like to flip that saying. With responsibilities come privileges. While I had responsibilities as an RK, I also had the privilege of seeing my dad work, seeing him in action on a weekly basis. Not a lot of kids have that privilege, and I'm grateful. Admittedly, I may have been a little less grateful for that privilege during my teenage years, but time has a magic way of erasing that sort of thing. Not a lot of people get to see their parent deliver a sermon, and he was really good at it. You can tell he thrived on it. He liked the spotlight, and delivering his sermons was his time to shine. He'd gesticulate. He'd meander around the bima. Sometimes he'd walk down off the bima. He'd wrap stories together with the week's Torah or Haftorah portion and deliver a moving lesson week after week. In short, he'd preach. So today, as the son of a preacher man, I'm going to exercise another RK privilege. I'm not really sure this is written down, but you'll just have to cut me a little slack. Today, I'm giving a sermon. There will be decidedly less gesticulating and wandering around the bima, and I'm not going to throw in any Talmudic references, but a sermon is what you're going to get. Rabbi Haas, Rabbi Gunfast, and Allison, for that matter, don't worry. This is a one-and-done scenario. I'm retiring after today. But for today, a sermon. And in this sermon, I'd like to talk about 3 lessons we can all take away from a life well lived. First, lesson. Do it your way. You heard my mom say it. My dad was an I did it my way guy. I think the song could well be his life's anthem. We even thought about finishing the service while listening to Frank Sinatra belt it out. My dad actually would have loved that. But you can all hear it in your head. You can hear the refrain. You can hear Frank's sultry voice. I don't have Frank's sultry voice, so I'll just read the last verse for you. For what is a man, what has he got? If not for himself, then he has not. To say the things he truly feels, and not the words of one who kneels. The record shows I took the blows and did it my way. That's my dad in a nutshell. He always, always did it his way. He certainly said the things he truly felt. He said them to his family and his friends. He said them from this very bema. Freedom of the pulpit is a phrase I heard a lot from my dad. You didn't have to agree with him, but he wasn't going to mince his words about how he felt and what he believed was right or moral or just. I know he occasionally got into some hot water for speaking his truth. He took the blows. But he had the courage to say the things he truly felt, even though he knew the blows might come. We should all aspire to that. But doing it his way was more than speaking his mind. It involved creativity and thinking outside the box. Way outside the box in some cases. From jazz Sabbaths with Big George singing Moon River to dinners celebrating the Jews of Kaifeng, China, or Cochin, India. Alice and I once offhandedly mentioned that we like one of the big menorahs I had grown up with. Did my dad simply give it to us? Well, yes, but not before finding a way to make a mold, order 100 new ones so he could keep one and sell the rest. You heard other examples from my mom, so I won't belabor the point. A shorter sermon is a better sermon after all, rabbis. Take note. So I'll just leave this as lesson one. Like my dad, be true to yourself, think outside the box, and do it your way. Second lesson, practice the ministry of hospitality. As many of you know, my dad was a big fan of Airbnb and loved hosting people in his home. He was proud of the beautiful environment he and my mom created, and he wanted to share it. Of course, he also liked having an audience of any kind, and this was another opportunity for an audience. We know the end of the story, though. As it turns out, short-term rentals are not permitted in Ardsley Park, but rather than simply removing his listing, my dad did it his way. Footnote, see lesson one. Sorry, can't take the lawyer out of the sermonizer. Anyway, my dad decided to fight the city under the theory that his Airbnb activities were protected by the First Amendment and the Religious Freedom Restoration Act because he was practicing, quote, the ministry of hospitality. Hosting guests was not merely a financial transaction, it was a religiously dictated good deed, a mitzvah, and who was the government to intrude? The money was not the point. Instead, the mitzvah, the religious duty, was to share your good fortune with others and show them a friendly and generous reception. It's actually a pretty clever legal argument, and to this day, I may be the only lawyer in Savannah to go to recorder's court with a constitutional defense to a city citation. It did not go well. However, even though the argument itself was always meant to be a bit flippant, and in part to show the absurd conclusions that could stem from the Religious Freedom Restoration Act, I think my dad really believed in the ministry of hospitality. I think he believed that it was his religious duty to share his good fortune with others and show them a friendly and generous reception. My dad loved being a host and loved being around people. He was a very social animal. He thrived on the energy of others. So yes, he certainly felt his own reward from hosting. But ultimately, I think it was simply his generous spirit that led him to want to share his home, his stories, and his wisdom. He just wanted to share. And frankly, couldn't the world use a little more sharing and generosity right now? So lesson two, open your heart to others and practice the ministry of hospitality. Third lesson, this is one that always got me, so excuse me. Third lesson, love big. This isn't just an admonition to love your family and friends. You should, of course, do that. But it's, well, bigger than that. Don't just love. Love with all your heart and soul. Love with all you have and all you are. More than anything else my dad did, loving big was my dad's greatest strength, his superpower. It manifested itself in many ways. From my dad's perspective, his loved ones walked on water and could do no wrong. He saw absolutely everything we did as amazing and wonderful, even when occasionally what we did was neither amazing nor wonderful. I may or may not have had some unauthorized parties in high school. When my dad found out, his response was, "Isn't he great he has so many friends?" I once put sheetrock on top of the hot tub, brilliant idea, thinking it would help the hot tub heat up more quickly, not realizing, of course, that the moisture would make that sheetrock disintegrate completely into the hot tub, essentially ruining the inner workings of this hot tub forever. My dad's response? Well, at least he was thinking creatively. He was fiercely proud of us, and perhaps even more importantly, he let us know it often. There is not a congressional race that he didn't think Cecilia should enter. And I think he was genuinely bewildered by the fact that Jen Psaki had her own show on MSNBC when Cecilia could do it just as well. Lillian, of course, should just skip the whole med school thing, go right to the Nobel Prize in Medicine. To be in his orbit was to feel his big love, and I think that extended beyond his family. It extended to his congregants, to his Airbnb guests, to his group that gathers to talk politics. We all felt it. As word spread that my dad died, I started receiving messages from those near and far. One refrain struck me. He was my rabbi, I heard. These are people that had other rabbis in their lives before and since, but years later, my dad was still their rabbi. That's the big love in return. When you exude big love, you get it back. Loving big was his greatest lesson to me. I've tried to model myself on it, and I hope I will continue to live up to his big love legacy, and so should you. So lesson 3, love with everything you have. You'll make the world a better place and feel that love in return. So that wraps up my first and only sermon. It lacked references to this week's Torah portion, but I think my dad would have enjoyed it anyway. Who am I kidding? He would have said it was utterly perfect and the absolute best and most amazing sermon he had ever heard. Love you, Dad.
Before I begin, I want to thank Rabbi Haas and the congregation for allowing me the opportunity to be here to honor my good friend, Arnold Arnie Belzer. I never called him Arnie. I'm not sure why, but it was always Arnold wherever we went. It's a day of sadness, of course, but it's also a celebration of a life well lived, as we've already heard. He was a rabbi's rabbi, orator, compassionate, optimistic. He was my friend for 35 years. I came here in 1988. He and Arlene came in 1990, and we became good friends right away. And after we moved away a few years later, we remained friends. We saw them every year when we came to Hilton Head to vacation. They would come to our son's bar mitzvah, our daughter's wedding. He even brought the confirmation class to Philadelphia when we were there, right? Colleague, confidant. He loved his pool and spa at his house. His ponytail and Jaguar. He had a ponytail. He had a Jaguar with a license plate that said Rabbi 1. I thought it was great. He had big ideas. He did great interfaith work here in the city. And I have to add that his work culminated with traveling to the Vatican to meet not one pope, one wasn't good enough, but 2. In January 2005, he met with Pope John Paul II, and in September 2008, met with Pope Benedict as well. And he was also active within the city as well. He was a kind and gentle soul. He always seemed to be in a good mood. He always, whenever we would be there, we would talk, and it was a good talk. This past Shabbat, we read from our Torah, Parashat Balak. Balak was a local king, and he was very fearful of the Jewish people, of the Israelites. He was fearful of them because he had heard what they had done to other peoples. And so he decided to send a fellow called Bilam to offer a series of curses upon the Jewish people. He thought that would be a good idea. He would curse those people, and it would have an effect. And as the story goes, whenever he opened his mouth, what came out was blessings. And if you read the text, there's blessing after blessing. He wanted to curse, and blessings came out. And like Bilam, the only words today that come forth from our voices, and for an individual who brought blessings to many people, from his loving family, his congregations, and the Jewish people. He was a true blessing to me all these 35 years. Whenever we spoke on the phone or in person, we would talk shop, rabbinic shop, religious shop, share rabbinic insights and ideas, some of which we could never share with anyone from the pulpit or in public, or for that matter, with anyone else. And as Nathan said, Gemilut Chesed, he was a person of loving kindness. He showed it throughout his entire life. He showed it to our two children at a very special time in their lives when he spoke with them. And Judy and I will never forget his and Arlene's kindness in holding a goodbye party for us when we left Savannah. Remember that? You were living in the Landings at that time, I believe. And there were a lot of people there. And at the very end, he gets up and he said something like, "Where do you want to go? We're sending you to Disney World," like at the end of, and we did, we went to Disney World. And also, as I mentioned earlier, when they came up to our son's bar mitzvah in Akron, he arranged that he would meet the confirmation class a few days later. And so they would vacation and view all of the sites in Philadelphia. I would call him from time to time to catch up, and usually he would dominate the conversation, which was always okay. He would tell me about what's going on in the city, a bit of politics, and we shared the same politics through and through, and the latest things going on with his family. And interestingly enough, as been mentioned, we serve the same congregation in Wyckoff, New Jersey, which is kind of strange, and it was kind of odd to the people at the congregations here in Savannah. So we had a connection before we met. His beloved family is so special to him. All the years he spent with Arlene, who is a true Ezer Kenegdo, as the Torah says, a true helpmeet, a true partner for 57 years of his work within the pulpit and his family, both in Connecticut, North Jersey, and Savannah, and how he took such good care, and how she took such good care of him in the last few months and years, but really throughout the relationship, right from the beginning. His son Nathan and Allison, he was so very proud of both of you. He told me everything. No, seriously, about what you were doing in Italy, teaching, and Nathan about your practice and how you opened up an office here. You did this. He told me everything because he was very proud. He was also very proud of his granddaughters. He loved and adored them, both of them. He was so proud of your accomplishments. Now, this is the first time I'm seeing them in 15, 18 years. The last time I saw them, they were little kids going out for trick-or-treating. But he told me about the Fulbright. He was very proud of that, and law school and working in Washington. He told me everything as we went along. He was so very proud. He was proud that you lived literally maybe walking distance, and he was so lucky. Both he and Arlene were so fortunate to have the grandchildren. I know what that's like. I'm fortunate to have my grandchildren close to us, and it's very special. He also told me how he began missing them when they went off to college. He wouldn't have them around, but they were always close to him. He touched many people's lives over the years through his congregations. And again, this is a day of blessing. He was proud to be rabbi at this historic congregation. He took great pride in the physical plant and the history of the congregation. He helped it grow and thrive and prosper. He loved showing people around. He was the best docent the congregation ever had. And I remember that, if you have a chance to see that ship hanging up, I don't know if you can't see it behind me, but it's in the lobby. He told me all about that ship that he had arranged to come here. Judy and I would see Arnold, Judy's my wife, in the third row. We would see both of them year after year in our yearly trip to Hilton Head. We would come to Savannah for dinner or for lunch, or they would come out to our hotel and spend the day and go to our favorite restaurant on the water. It was a continuation of our conversations. We may not speak for months and months, but when we came back, it was like picking up the conversation again. Sometimes they'd spend the entire day. Several times they'd spend the night with us at the hotel. These are such good memories and good blessings as well. Another blessing I want to share with you, it was written by my son, our son, Joey. He likes to be called Joe, but Joey. And I want to read, when I told our two kids that he had passed away, they knew him, of course, they were little kids. Joe was 7 or 8 years old. Our daughter was finishing 8th grade. And, but they remembered him, especially our son. I didn't realize how he zeroed in onto him. You don't know these things. So he says this: I knew Rabbi Belzer when I was very young, but the fact that I remember him nearly 30 years later is proof of how indelible a presence he was. As the son of a rabbi, I understand how much theatrically presence and precision matter in this calling. Rabbi Belzer had all of that and more. He had a way of making you feel truly seen. With his wit, warmth, and singular charisma, he could light up a room and zero in on a soul in equal measure. My most vivid memory of him is from my bar mitzvah. I was painfully awkward and self-conscious 13-year-old who still looked 8, a transplant from Savannah, struggling to find my way in the Philadelphia area. My Torah portion was not so, the introduction of Samson, the Torah's own superhero. And fittingly, my bar mitzvah theme was superheroes. I still love superheroes. He's in his early 40s. Not for the fantasy or spectacle, but for the way that they know what's right and have the strength, wit, and confidence to fight for it. All the qualities I longed for at that young age. Now, I asked Arnold to give the charge to our son rather than me, because it was my congregation. I led the service, but I said, I want you to do it so I can watch from the congregation. So he continues, says, Rabbi Belzer stood beside me at the pulpit, put his arm around me, and gave me a speech. I wish I could recall word for word, but I'll never forget how he ended it. With a roguish grin and that unmistakable flair, he looked at me and said, Joey, you're my superhero. That moment stayed with me because Rabbi Belzer had a rare gift, the ability to sense someone's insecurities and speak the exact words they needed to hear. In a world full of people who chip away at your spirit, he built people up. I count myself lucky to have been one of the many he inspired. May his memory always be for a blessing. Now, that's all I have to say, but there's one other thing, that Arnold wants to have the last word. He always had the last word.
Okay, so those of you who've known me in life know well that I like to get the last word. So on this day, which is a tough day, I guess, not for me, but for all of you, and I hope it certainly gets better, this is a day for me to get the last word in. So I wanted to emphasize that I need to communicate with you about things that I haven't done well. I know I've done a lot of things well and a lot of things successfully, but I don't think I've said thank you well enough. Those of you who experienced being at Temple on Yom Kippur at Ne'ilah know that I had a tradition of thanking my life partner, Arlene. And that was an important part of Ne'ilah. It was the very end of the Yom Kippur service. I thanked Arlene in very strong, And what did you say? Many words, and it was a deserved thank you because she's been a wonderful life partner to me. And I needed that opportunity to thank her. But then I started thinking that there are others who I haven't thanked appropriately or enough. I never sent enough thank you notes, which I thought was failing on my part. But I kept on thinking of that old joke about why junior league ladies don't go to orgies, and that's because too many thank you notes to write. And so maybe life is about too many thank you notes to write, but it's no excuse because it is a worthwhile thing to do. So I want to use this opportunity to say thank you to all of you, my friends, my enemies, my supporters, my non-supporters, and so on. Thank you for all you've done for me to keep me honest, to keep me happy, and to keep me involved in this ministry of mine at the temple and during my career. I'm sorry if I failed anybody. And if anything, I'm sorry I failed myself at times. But I think by and large, I did pretty well in my lifetime. And served a lot of people, married, I think, close to 2,000 people in my career. Can you imagine that? 2,000 weddings. And that's an accomplishment in itself. And I think most of those weddings were successful. Some of them were not, but I don't take any responsibility for those that were not successful. So I'd like to say farewell, and I'd like to acknowledge the people who gave me love and who supported me. Arlene, of course. Arlene requires thousands of words, which I'm not going to do at this time, but you've heard it, many of you, at times. I want to thank Arlene. I want to thank Nathan, my joy of a son, my successful son, my wonderfully warm and loving son, who gave me two spectacular granddaughters, Cecilia and Lillian, and of course, brought into our family, Allison. Allison is spectacular, warm and loving, and she contributed to making my granddaughters, Cecilia and Lillian, into successful, young, beautiful, and talented women that they are. And so thank you, Allison. Thank you, Nathan, for the joy you've brought to my life. I have to thank my sister for just being there for all of my life. I love you, Ellen, and I wish God's blessing upon you. And I think I want to end by thanking y'all. Y'all. That's a Savannah word I've learned to use. I think I've done it okay. I came up with Shalom y'all, so I give you that Shalom y'all for all of you as a permanent gift. So don't forget it, say it, use it, and lots of blessings. I love you, y'all.
With that, I ask you to please rise for the memorial prayer. El Malay Rachamim, Shochein Bamaromim, Hamatzei Menucha, Nechona Tachat, Kanfei Hashchina, B'malo Kedoshim Utorim, Gazaraki Amazrim et Nishmat, Avraham Meir, Ben Binyamin Uframa, Shalach La'olamo, Began Eden Tehei Menuchato, Ana Bala Rachamim, Hasdi Rehu, Beseter Knafecha, le'olamim, utzror b'tzror ha'chaim, et nishmato. Adonai hu nachalato, v'yanuach b'shalom al mishkavo, v'nomar amen. O God, exalted and full of compassion, grant perfect peace in your sheltering presence among the holy and pure to the soul of Avraham Meir ben Binyamin Ufruma, who has gone to his eternal home. Master of mercy, we beseech you, remember all the worthy, righteous, and good deeds that he had the opportunity to perform in the land of the living. May his soul be bound up in the bond of life. The Lord is his portion. May he always rest in peace. And let us say, Amen. I'd like to call Rabbi Haas to come forward for the mourner's Kaddish.
I invite everyone who would like to recite it with me. This is the prayer we say for those who have died and at the anniversary of their death in the future. Yitkadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabba, v'hamad yivrach ruteh v'yamlich malchuteh, v'chayachon v'yomechon v'chayedechol Beit Yisrael, v'agalah v'zman kariv v'yamru Amen. Yehei shmei Rabba mivrach le'olam olamei olmaya, Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh, v'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal shemei dekudisha b'rechu, Leila min kol birchata v'shirata, tush bechata v'nechet mata, tamiram v'alma v'yimru, Amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shemaya, v'chaim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael, v'yimru, Amen. Hosei shalom b'mromav, hu ya'aseh shalom, aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael, v'yimru, Amen. May God grant peace to those who mourn and comfort to the bereaved among us, as we say, Amen. Please be seated.
Just a few announcements. The family will be sitting and observing Shiva at the home of Nathan and Allison, 11 East 46th Street, this evening between 6:30 and 8:30. Tuesday, 2 to 4, 6:30 to 8:30. Wednesday, 2 to 4, and 6:30 to 8:30. There'll be a Shiva service, a religious service, at 7 to allow the family to recite the Kaddish. And also, I was supposed to say that after we complete and finish here, everyone's invited to the Mordechai Sheftel Hall for a collation.
Everyone is invited to use the exits behind me if you'd like to go into the social hall this way as well.